Welcome to the 2026 European Global Showdown. We're out here for day 2 of our Whiskey Throttle Media shootout here in the 450s for 2026. The Japanese models have already run. We've got the top 2. Yamaha and Honda are moving on after a 2-way tie between Honda and Kawasaki. We went to the subset of points tallying and Honda nudged them out. So Yamaha and Honda, who are they going to face off against? We have got today KTM, Husqvarna, GasGas, Ducati, Beta, and Triumph, all vying for those top 2 spots. Shout out to our sponsors of this year's Global Showdown, Bel-Ray, Total Performance Lubricants. If you guys need anything from chain lube, engine oil, filter cleaner, you name it, they've got it. Bel-Ray, Total Performance products, and also Element. If you guys are trying to get hydrated, we've got these guys on it today. Element is incredible. Tastes great and gets everything you need without sugar and all the baloney that you don't want. If you're drinking Gatorade or any of that kind of crap, you're doing it wrong. Check out Element. You can go to our Instagram page. We've got a link there in our sponsors segment for our favorites that you can get a free sample. So check that out. You're going to want to do that. Big thank you to those guys. Let's get this day started. Our test rider here is Michael LaPaglia. Give me your stats. How tall, how old, what class?
I'm 6'2", about 205 pounds right now. I'm 36 years old, and I guess I would race the 30 Pro class if I raced often, but that's what I raced at Mammoth, so I guess that's what I'd sign up for these days.
Okay, a vet pro here we've got.
Yeah.
All right, here with Cody Moore. Cody, tell us age, weight, class, etc. Give me some of your stats.
I'm 19 years old. I'm in 250A. I'm 140 pounds, so yeah, pretty light, but still able to hold on to a 450 somehow.
Attaboy. All right, we're here with our Whiskey Throttle Media professional racer, B-Ray, Brandon Ray. Hi. B-Ray, you were going for it today, as always. I love it. I'm here for it. So, how'd it go?
It was awesome. It was a really cool learning experience. Like I said multiple times throughout the day, that took more energy to do that than it was just doing, motos throughout the day. 6 different bikes on one track throughout the day. It was a lot, especially with the track getting rougher and rougher and more beat. And then we're the last ones here. So I never really say this late either, but overall it was cool riding the different bikes back to back and getting to feel the difference, back to back.
All right, we're here with our test rider, Ryan Hughes, the Rhino. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Rhino. You got so many years of racing experience and testing with factory teams and, motocross. You got a lot of experience, so you really understand how to feel a bike. Doesn't mean it's the only opinion that counts, but I think it's a valuable one. So take us through the bikes here, starting with 6th place today. Lots of new motorcycles to the market, and I'm anxious to hear how you thought of them.
Of the 6 bikes, I'm going to say the Beta came in number 6. The engine was good. It was smooth. It had power. But the only thing that felt weird was like the bars were really wide and kind of too straight. The grips were kind of fat, so that was a weird thing. It felt very stretched out. It didn't turn at the front end, almost like it had a hinge in the middle of the bike, so to speak. And the bike turned around that. Very kind of kicky in the rear once you braked hard. The front kind of had the same feeling as a lot of them, that it was good in the beginning, but once you hit the brakes, it just went through the stroke, and then it went very deep. And then it was like I was pushing back and chasing the front end, and then coming into the corner, it'd want to tuck. Coming out of the corner, it'd want to just bounce around like that. So it was a little bit difficult bike to get comfortable with, because even like the handlebars and a lot of things were different than the other bikes. So that was probably number 6 to me, just because the feeling of that imbalance of chassis to ground to suspension.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a common thread just listening to guys talk as they got off it today. It has some cool things to it. I love the clear tank so you can see where the fuel is. Just some of the components on it, I'm like, that's a really good idea. That's sharp. It's a nice looking bike. Like you said, I think the motor, and they designed it with rideability in mind.
Yeah, I mean, the engine was good. It was very smooth, very tractable, could be aggressive, still had power down low and all that. So, that engine was good, but just just what was built around the engine needed a lot of fine tuning.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. Can that bike be fine tuned? Of course, 100%. But just out of the box, what needs the less fine tuning for me?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to go off of.
You know, I was kind of excited to ride the Beta, the Ducati, and the Triumph because I haven't ridden those before. Although the Beta came in last place for me, it honestly wasn't that far off. You know, the engine's really good. It's got good power. Really, all the bikes have good power these days, but the Beta was right there, and I don't think it's far off. So I just wanted to add that even though it did come in last place, it wasn't like it was, you know, a terrible bike and anything like that. It had some good features to it. I think they just need to work on the balance a little bit. I think like the overall package, you know, just needs a little bit of fine tuning. Obviously, Benny Bloss is able to ride it pretty darn good in a Supercross race, so they've got some things figured out on that end. So once I come to the production side, it should be better.
The bike felt really down on power. For one, was the initial feeling of the bike, and the suspension was super soft on it. I was bombing out a lot, and you know, that's very scary to do. When I first sat on the bike, though, I didn't have to adjust the handlebars or the levers, so the controls and everything felt decent. Definitely the best part about the bike, but the suspension being so soft jeopardizes cornering as well. So that's why I have it down to 6.
Yeah, and we did turn your clickers in all the way. We tried adding a little more, less sag. You know, we did everything we could. It's just a little soft for you,
Soft
for your
Beta,
skill level.
it wasn't completely horrendous, but I felt like compared to the other bikes here today, it just didn't do anything better than some of those bikes. You could definitely go out there and race it, but you'd have to do, I feel like, a couple things to it before you could really feel comfortable on it and ready to race.
Well, then let's not beat that guy up anymore. Okay, so tell us who you have in 5th place.
In 5th place, I have the Husky. Not that it was bad by any means. I feel like the engine braking felt like I was kind of riding a 2-stroke almost. It didn't have much, and me, I kind of like a little bit more engine braking on it, so that was kind of what set it back compared to some of the others. That little thing kind of bumped it down quite a bit just because of how close all the bikes are.
The Husky had the same feeling as the KTM in the front. They lowered the bike a bit, so it felt just more planted in the ground. Like I could kind of turn it a little bit easier that way. Didn't feel so high, and kind of like I'm on kind of like a pivot sometimes. But that bike felt a little bit more balanced. But then again, the rear end would go through the stroke pretty quick when I hit something hard. A little bit easier to turn. The power was a little bit more aggressive than, let's say, the GasGas, but not as aggressive as the KTM. So that was a little bit easier for me to ride.
The Husqvarna power was good, had plenty of power for what I needed out here today. The gearing felt fine, everything felt good with that. You just didn't really have a whole lot of good, I didn't have good feel in my hands, like under braking. You know, you really want to feel the tire planted on the ground, and I was kind of lacking that in the Husqvarna. Like I was really trying to get a feel for like where the tire was coming into corners. And then secondly, similar to the Ducati, but the acceleration bumps, like you even saw one of my shining moments coming out of that corner. The thing was just like bouncing me all around, you know, coming out. It just wouldn't like sit and like track out as well as I'd like it to. The rest of the track, floating over jumps, going, you know, coming down, you know, these high-speed corners or coming into the high-speed corners, it felt really good. You know, it doesn't do anything funny, but you know, and I feel like if I was able to be out here for a full day testing with some people and, you know, really getting the suspension dialed in, I could really, you know, get it to my liking. But we're out here testing like the initial test, like as if you're a consumer to go buy these things, and you know, that's my feedback on it. Sure.
I used to ride Huskies a lot. You know, I rode for JMC Motorsports, so your bike felt like home when I sat on it. I was like, dang, I haven't rode a Husqvarna in a few years, you know, so it was nice to get back on that bike. That bike was solid. The engine performance, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Definitely wasn't the fastest bike like the Ducati, but was really smooth, and I just felt super comfortable on that bike. So like I didn't gel with the GasGas, but I gelled with this bike. We went a little bit stiffer on the high speed on this Husqvarna, and that made a big improvement. Like I said, like I just felt very comfortable on it, and could really throw that bike around and kind of, you know, get out of the deeper ruts and hit my own lines that I wanted instead of taking the goat path. A lot of the corners today, they're very rutted and deep, and I was able to kind of get around those instead of just sticking in them.
In third, I have the Triumph. I really enjoyed it. The power was there. I felt like it was very manageable, that you could almost be riding it a little bit lazy, and then when you get to the bottom of the jump, you could crack it and you could go. But very manageable to where you could roll the throttle on and be smooth with it and not have to be jerky. And then we had the suspension dialed. We only went 3 clicks softer from the stock setting, and that made a world of a difference. Today, the ruts were pretty long, so the acceleration bumps coming out of them are pretty harsh, and I felt like that bike handled them great.
Third place was the Triumph, and again, a bike I was excited to ride. You know, the Triumph had good power again, and we made some clicker adjustments to it, which helped the bike. I think we sped up the rebound. Prior to that, it was having the same problem where it was just like jarring and like really like tough to get out of the ruts. It wouldn't just track out. And we made some adjustments to the rebound, sped it up a little bit, and it really helped that. But overall, it was kind of, again, the same feeling where it was just a bit much to hold on to, where you're coming into braking bumps, the rut's starting to form, there's still some bumps into it, and you would kind of just like skip across the top of them instead of being able to fall in the rut and then flow through it. You know, my bikes really 3 through 6 kind of had an issue with like standing up in the corner. The winning bike really settled in the corner and was able to flow through and kind of felt like it sucked you into the corner and took you through it, which is, I think, the goal, right? With that, the Triumph did pretty darn good, but you know, not as good as 1 and 2.
Okay.
There's a couple better, yeah.
I rode the Triumph 450. I rode it on Arena Cross, and never really rode it. I never rode it actually on outdoor, just a 250 on outdoor. And to me, it just felt like the bike was just stiff, but it felt like I can trust it. And like if I wanted to do something with it, I could. Like if I wanted to go outside, inside, across some ruts, it would. Like I like throwing my bikes around a little bit more, and that bike felt like that. You know, it kind of really wanted you to ride it smoother, more than you know, a little bit wild, quote unquote, as you call my riding style. The power of the bike felt really good. I gave that a 4 out of 5, and then the comfort and controls, I gave that a 5 as well, because I just like how the Triumphs feel sitting on it. And you know, the handling wise,
everybody has a different riding style, different things they're looking for. We're just trying to get, you know, different opinions. Yes. And if there's a common thread that kind of everybody's saying, that's usually like a pretty solid truth. This shootout has been very different because it's like the results are all over the map. So it's very interesting.
Just felt very balanced. You know, coming in the corners, it was easier to corner. It stayed in the corner a little bit. Still had that feel at the front end that it went down through the stroke a little bit too much. There's like a hole in a lot of them, but the rear end felt good, except maybe when I was braking. Then when I braked, the back end had a kick just because the front end would dive a bit. This one felt a little bit more predictable. The engine was good. You know, the engine seemed like it was very smooth, predictable, easy to ride. I could be aggressive, I could be smooth. All of them, every single one of them, I kind of had a problem in the corners, you know, feeling comfortable in them. And that's why I picked this last one to be the best.
Hopped on it and I just felt right at home on it. Like it felt so smooth, it felt so plush. It worked through the bumps. There was no side-to-side action. High speed, low speed. For me, for whatever reason, it just felt really, really good. It felt like good in my hands. I got the least amount of arm pump on that bike. And the cornering on it was just exceptional.
And you normally ride a Suzuki, so it isn't like you ride a GasGas or something and you're comfortable on it. What is it you're feeling for and looking for in a bike?
Yeah, I ride a Suzuki. You know, that's the bike I have, an RMZ 450 that we did the video on. I mean, comfort, right? Like that's easy to say, but like what is comfort? We were on a technical track today, and a bike that can get around all of those different aspects of the track like equally, right? Like you don't want one bike that's really good in one area and then it's not so good in the other. So, you know, one thing about the GasGas too, I wanted to add, I don't know if the seats are different, but the GasGas seat really held me on the bike a lot better. Where like some of the other bikes, the seats are so flat, like going through a corner, it starts to pull out from underneath you, where the GasGas just had such a good feeling for me, like sitting into the bike, into the corner, and it really held me in position. This another thing that contributes to arm pump is as you're falling off the back of the bike, you're really having to hold on with your arms. The GasGas really felt like I was able to stay on there with that, not having to like over grip the bike with my hand. So
at the very end, we all talked a little bit after we wrote everything down, and I was kind of surprised that I had the GasGas in 5th, but just for me personally, I didn't really gel with the bike that well. I felt like the front end was pushing a little bit on me, and we did make adjustments, but they did tell me that the bike had a different mapping on it, and I didn't really like it. I felt like I would want it more aggressive. It was still really, the power was really smooth overall. I would just want a little bit more, but I just didn't really feel that comfortable on that bike. That's why I have it down at 5th.
I've never ridden a GasGas before today, so I hopped on the bike and just immediately felt super comfortable on it. I really enjoyed the engine braking that it has going into the corners. I felt like I cornered probably some of the best on that bike out of all day. The only thing that I feel like it could have a little bit more was the top end. I feel like the GasGas mechanic today said that we only had it on the standard map. We couldn't change it to the aggressive. So I think if I could have it on the aggressive, then it would probably be even better.
Even better. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, impressive. What would you say? You know, there's a lot of people that look at the GasGas, the Husky, and the KTM, and they say it's the same bike, but they're actually very different when you ride them, and that's a common theme today.
You can find a bunch of similarities in them, but I feel like the motors with how they hit, I feel like the KTM revs out a lot more than the GasGas. I liked that part about the KTM. Like I said, they're all so close to me. Between that and then just how it handles, I feel like they all handle differently with everything, with their chassis and just everything like that.
Yeah, there are subtleties between them, and you don't realize it's going to be that noticeable.
Yeah, definitely.
Until you ride them back to back like that.
Just because the engine was a little bit more mellow, a little bit easier for me to ride, more predictable. I could roll it on, I could be aggressive. The back end felt very stable, you know, acceleration. I mean, so did the KTM, but not as good as maybe some of the other ones I'm coming up with. But that bike felt a little bit easier to ride, but the front forks were very extended. So now it felt like I was chasing the bike with that one. I come in the corner and the front end just kind of wanted to go a little bit, or if I wanted to turn it into corner, I wanted to stand up a little bit. And so the other ones dipped down, it hung too low in the front. The first two, you know, on the KTM, but then the GasGas was a little bit too high. It was a little bit of imbalance that way, but I think, like I say, if I just fix the forks, boom.
So second place came the KTM. Well, the KTM felt good. Power felt really good. The position of the bike, like the what do you call it, like the ergonomics of it, like everything felt good. I was able to balance it really well over jumps. The rear end felt really good under braking. We had a lot of braking bumps today, but the front end just kind of felt like it would just kind of bounce. Although it did track and you can feel the tire on the ground really, really well with that. And it sat through the corners, and I think it was probably, again, the second place bike, so I cornered it really well today. If there was one complaint I had, it's just the front end just felt like it was just kind of bouncing up and down. And we tried making some adjustments. It seemed like it improved it a little bit, both front and rear. The bike felt balanced, but it just didn't quite have as good of a feeling as my number one bike.
The bike is definitely a race bike, but it's almost like too supercrossy bike for me. Like the engine is just a little bap, bap, bap. Like anytime you hit it, the thing's just going somewhere. And that was hard for me to, you know, be smooth with it, and or if I was aggressive with it, then it was too aggressive. And so that was a little bit hard for me. And then the front, the suspension to me wasn't any good because it just dove in the front. The back felt high and it was kind of pushing a bit, so I kind of had that want to tuck coming in the corners, and also being so low in the stroke that the bike felt like it wanted to ride me a lot. You know, one time I had to look down and see if I had a front flat tire, because it was just kind of like that wallowy, mushy feel because it was down low in that stroke. But again, the bike felt like a race bike, stout, you know, supercross, ready to go. But just again, straight out of the box, what's going to be easiest for me? What can I make the least changes with? And that one, I felt like I'd have to make a lot of changes to kind of make it feel comfortable for me.
Yeah, I think that all of the bikes, European or Japanese, with some tweaking and tuning, you can make any of them great.
Any bike can win. And so for me, what bike would I have to make the least changes on to make comfortable for me? And that's how I rated them.
I liked it. I felt comfortable on it. We went a little bit softer on the suspension, and that helped it out a lot. At first, when I got on it, everything was just super harsh. But once we made those changes, it definitely helped. The motor was definitely better than the Husky, just with the engine braking and the power of it. When you put in the aggressive map, if you crack the throttle, it's definitely very fast. So I feel like compared to the other bikes, it wasn't quite there for me.
Okay, what were some of the things about it that, what did you feel like it was lacking?
Just a little bit of the comfortability for me. Like the cornering, whenever I'd come in, I felt like it would want to push a little bit more than some of the other bikes. Felt like it almost had the in-between of the Husky and the GasGas with the engine braking and all that sort of thing. So when I'd be coming in, it was kind of almost felt inconsistent with how it was. Like my gearing, I felt like I'd have to ride a gear lower than what I wanted to, almost for it to pull out of it better.
Okay. Tell me why the KTM won for you.
The KTM won because it just felt like the best overall bike right out of the box. The power, I loved the way the power delivery was on the bike. It was very smooth, it was fast. Like I said, we kept the same adjustments throughout the bikes, and I just felt like I hopped on that bike. I hit the corners the best on that bike. I could scrub that bike really well. You know, it's kind of along the same lines that, like, you know, these 450s, like, you have to ride them more smooth than you can a 250. Just with the KTM though, it felt like I was very connected with the bike, and the bike was very connected to the track. So I was able to, you know, sweep my corners and find the loose dirt when it was hard packed out there. And
a lot of the feedback from our older guys, the vet riders, said that it was an abrupt power. It was like too much when it came on. A lot of front end bias, so it was really just positive, and, you know, too much so. So maybe it's just sort of geared towards faster, more aggressive riders.
Yeah, I mean, I see what they say about the front end, you know, turning, like they said, but I like that, you know. I like it when I want to turn at a certain point, you know, on a dime. Bike felt like it did that, you know. I didn't really feel like much of pushing on the front end, but if I turned and was able to go, like, you know, cut across the rut, it did that. You know, it's give or take with the suspension. You know, you want it stiffer, but you jeopardize the acceleration bumps. You know, you're gonna feel them more when you have stiffer suspension. So, and I did feel that as well, but, you know, it's give or take on something like that.
So you picked the Ducati to win, which was a surprise to me.
It's a surprise to me.
First year of this motorcycle. Tell me what you liked about that.
What I liked about it was it felt very balanced, man. Like the both wheels had the same amount of weight on it. You know, the suspension wasn't diving. The suspension wasn't, you know, extended. The back end wasn't lugged down. The back end wasn't kicking. I feel like it had the best package balance-wise of everybody. Like, that was the last one I rode in the day. The track was the roughest. I was getting a little tired, and I felt I could be more aggressive on that than all the other bikes.
Yeah.
And because when I put it in a corner, it's stuck in the corner. When I was in the corner, it was easy to follow the corner. Didn't want to tuck out of it or climb out of it. When I accelerated out of these rough stuff, the back end just soaked it up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the power was really good. The power was very smooth, you know, where you could be aggressive with it, but then also you could over rev it. The only problem I had with that bike is that the shifter was too far away. Like, I'd shift up and I'd miss it.
You said you were missing the whole
I'm missing
thing.
it. I'm like, what the hell? So that was the only thing, was the shifter, but the balance of it, I mean, it kind of almost felt more like a Honda to me. You know, very planted. The bike felt a little bit soft. Not soft, but just like harshness of hitting bumps. It felt soft to me. I mean, I was surprised, but that would be, if I was gonna pick a bike right now, hey, Rhino, take it out of the box, put it together and go ride, it'd be the Ducati. If I rolled the gas on, it wasn't like the KTM, you know, each bump I hit, my throttle would it'd go away. That bike felt like it was, I could get on it and it was smooth through the bumps, smooth through, you know, full delivery of the power. And then if I clutched it also, it had a smooth delivery, didn't have a blast. I think there's a lot of room to work with that engine. I was surprised. I was very surprised.
We're all excited to have Ducati, you know, in the format. Again, all the bikes have really good power. I'm going to say that a few times throughout this interview because they're all pretty consistent. You know, the way they can map things these days, I feel like they make a very smooth delivery. The Ducati, I will say though, above the other bikes, did I was able to like lug third gear and pull third gear out of some of the deep ruts. And we had some really long, really deep ruts out here today. They were pretty tough. And I felt that the Ducati was able to pull third gear better than the other bikes. However, boy, for me, at my stature and my weight and the ability I ride at, it was really out of balance for me. I had a really hard time adjusting to the rear end. It just felt really harsh, but harsh in like a soft way. Like I felt like I was just blowing through the stroke, and I had a hard time under acceleration bumps. Although I will say it did corner well. It did sell in the corners really well, but accelerating when the track got a little bit rougher, it was a lot to hold on to. The arms are kind of the tall tale, and you know, my arms definitely got a little bit tighter riding the Ducati more than some of the other bikes.
The bike was definitely felt the fastest out of all the bikes, but the suspension, it felt like it was still a little soft, and the bike felt rigid as well. That you force you to kind of ride the bike smoother, more than erratic. I wish the suspension was a little bit more plush in it, because like I said, it was very.
Was it bottoming out?
Yeah.
You said it was soft, but you want it more plush.
The bike was soft, yeah. So I was blowing through the stuff, so I wanted it more stiffer. That way it would stay more on top of the bumps. It felt like it did corner very well. And then also through some of the hard pack stuff, it felt like the bike wanted to kind of wash out a little bit more than the other bikes.
Okay, so Ducati wins for you. Tell me about the Ducati.
Yeah, when we were getting the shots early in the morning, I hopped on the bike. Man, that motor is just crazy good. That's like the best motor I've ever ridden on. It feels like it has the torque to pull out to where you can almost lug it, but it screams all the way up through second. Like, you can raise the RPMs as high as you want, and I feel like the bike will just keep pulling. Cornered, I felt like amazing. I could trust it going into a lot of the corners a lot more than the other bikes, even when the Ducati was the last bike I rode today. So the track was at its worst, and I still felt the best on it, which was really surprising.
Yeah, I noticed it was the last bike you rode, and on a day like this, 6 bikes is a lot, and I was worried that the track would be so gone by the end of the day, it would be difficult to get a good comparison. And so Michael had the same thing, where one of the bikes he rode last, which happened to be the GasGas, he liked it the best. So that says a lot. When you go out in the track is that hammered and you're still the most comfortable, that says a lot. But the motor was the big thing for you, huh?
The motor was the biggest thing for me, for sure.
Okay, and describe, if you can, how does it feel compared to kind of all the other engines, or the engines you've ridden that are not Desmodronic valves?
So I felt like I could be revved out in, say, second gear going into braking bumps, and instead of the chassis feeling like it's locked up or anything, it felt like it was just free. Everything would still work, just like you were in third gear, kind of just cruising over it. So
awesome. I mean, these results are super mixed up and not what I expected, I guess, but you guys felt what you felt. So I thank you. I appreciate the help today. I know it was a lot of work. I see a blister there on your thumb. So
from the races.
Okay, well, we didn't do it any good today. Thanks for the help. All right, we are wrapped on a long day here at Fox Raceway, and what a crazy bunch of results. I mean, as I'm listening to each of these test riders go through what their thoughts were, they all had a different ranking. It's all over the place, and that makes it interesting. It means that, all of these bikes have very different characteristics, and depending on how you ride, your size, your ability level, it's going to kind of change which one you like. And I've done shootouts for a lot of years, and I've never seen such mixed up results, but coming in first, the Ducati. That is your winner today, with 9 total points. And there was a 3-way tie for second between KTM, GasGas, and Triumph. So just like we did in our Japanese shootout, we had to go to our subset of categories, which is engine performance, suspension, cornering, and ergonomics and comfort and everything else. They rank those 1 through 5 for each bike. Those points are tallied up. At the end of those tallies, KTM is going to move on with 63.5 points. The GasGas had 63 points, and the Triumph had 62 points. That's how freaking close it was. I mean, razor thin margins, crazy. So Ducati and KTM will go head to head against Yamaha and Honda next week at Glen Helen. Who's gonna win? I have no idea. I thought I had a better understanding of what would happen today, and I was way off. Stick around, it's gonna get weird. Thank you guys. Big thank you to Bell Ray and Element. Thank you to our test riders. And a huge thank you to all the manufacturers who came out. All these bikes are great. The riders all commented a few tweaks, a few of this or that, a few changes, and any one of these could be a great bike for them. But you have to ride them as they come in stock trim, and so here we are. So we will see you guys next week with Ducati, KTM, Yamaha, and Honda to see who's making the 2026 450 of the year. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos, comment what you thought, and share it with your friends.